compeers. At Talk City, we interview the newsmakers, give you incisive analysis, informed commentary, accurate and up-to-date matters. Choose Intelligent Radio. Talk City 91.1 FM. Your address for talk.
Thank you for the time. Oh yeah, Oshe Baba Oshe. Thank you for the time. Hey, For centuries we have been separated, but we Father pleaded for we to be reunited. Some came from far.
Good evening, everyone. This is Indaba, where knowledge grows. This program seeks to find consensus on issues which affect African lives here in Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and across the African diaspora. The program is hosted by the Emancipation Support Committee and is coming to you live from Talk City's studios here at 11A Maraval Road. Indaba, to our listening audience, all of you, good evening. We begin today's edition with an introduction to all the hosts, and let me tell you a little bit about what we have for the program, the content in the program tonight. We're featuring a special tribute to my wonderful Vanessa Herbert. We're also having the Africa Report, a Netflix portrayal of Cleopatra of Egypt, a discussion with Dr. Medea Farag Miller, and also a viewpoint, latest issues across the African diaspora. Without further ado, let me bring in Shabaka Kambon, Reverend Kwame Kamau, Dr. Fergus, and also Vanessa Herbert. Hello and good evening to each and every one of you.
Hello and good evening to you as well.
It's a lovely evening, and I'm very excited about this program tonight.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure and a treat to be here with the veteran, the golden voice, the charismatic personality, the charm, the grace. That is Sister Vanessa Lillian Herbert. I know that I am the youngest out of the four of us here on tonight in terms of being on the show. But certainly, even in the brief time that I've had working with you, it's been such a pleasure. I look forward to all the wonderful tidbits and a good Pan-African gossip to come out of tonight's program as Shabaka and Ababa Fergus takes us back to those 12 wonderful years. Welcome to the program, Sister Vanessa.
Well, thank you very much. I feel very much at home. This is home, all right? This is home, so here we are.
Indeed. Shabaka, kick it off.
As I said last week on the show, you might have left the Talk City family, but you have not left the Indaba family. You'll always be part of the Indaba family. And I guess what we'd like to do tonight is we pay tribute to you. Of course, let me just let you know that our listeners, since you've left the show, have been accosting me on the streets. They want to know where you've gone and when you're coming back. So I told them, you're not really gone from the Indaba show. You're going to be back occasionally. We don't know in what capacity yet, but we're happy that tonight is the night that you're here. So I guess what we want to do tonight is sort of reminisce and go back over, give you an opportunity to go back over now some of the things we've done before. What were the programs or the moments in Indaba that stood out for you? Maybe we can start there.
Too many to recount.
Let me just give my continues. Yes, Vanessa, I just want to recognize your sterling contribution to the show as an anchor from the very beginning. The show has become what you have made it to a great extent. And I want to say, I want to give you a new status this evening, Anchor America.
Excuse
I
me.
love it.
Can you tell that I'm blushing? All right. Shabaka is giving me two onerous a task, asking me to pull out moments. I can pick a few moments, but in terms of it's 12 years we're talking about, so I can certainly generalize and talk about my experience of Indaba because I think we all, Dr. Fergus, Sister Zakia, Brother Kafra Kamban, Sister Asha, different people contributed at the very beginning because we didn't know what exactly we were going to do in the 2 hours that we got. And we did our best. We said, okay, we'll include music. Of course, there was always an agenda in terms of what topics that were going to be covered. But I think that from the very start, it was a learning curve, not only for you, but for me, because as much as I know about myself, I know more about myself and my people and my history because I've been engaged with the program in Daba. And I wish that for everyone who listens to the program, and particularly the young ones. I I can think of, and then again, too, there's the connections to the festivals, the connections to important history. I mean, there are so many things that happen within the program, within the studio, and how can I even, talk about particular moments? Because, there were always, Dr. Fergus always came with his interesting topics, learning about Mali and headdresses, I mean, headgear and books and Egypt and so many different things. I mean, I have grown enormously in terms of my African or Black consciousness, all because I've been engaged with Indaba. I knew a few things when I was a teenager. My dad made sure that I glanced at and looked at Basil Davidson's Africa Rediscovered, but it was because of Indaba that I learned of the community here in Trinidad and Tobago and the community beyond the Trinidad and Tobago, the regional community, the international community, and then also the chance to see the faces of the people who were actually out there in the firing line. I mean, I remember one of my exciting times. Okay, Shabaka, you want an exciting day? All right. When we went to see about the Columbus statue, taking down the Columbus statue, and certainly making a case for that engagement with the people of Port of Spain, the statue itself. I was in there with a placard. I was fully involved. I said, okay, I was there when the prayers were being done. That was definitely a big moment. And with the passage of time, every single year, the engagement in the emancipation, the parade up Frederick Street became more significant every year. I mean, it's really meeting people, having conversations. What else? What else? Today I was listening to a program from 2016, and there was I said one of the big programs that we did. It was a victory for the Emancipation Support Committee when we spoke about Luxon said View, that Haitian student who was he had come to Trinidad, gone back to Haiti, come back again to go to Cipriani Labour College. And the arbitrary mistreatment and so that he got from the immigration officials who were telling him, bring your passport, you're leaving here in 5 days, come with a ticket, and then you're getting passport back and they're shoving you into the airport. I mean, we were getting first-hand information. And I think in the duration of the 12 years, Indaba is a program that covered topics and continues to cover topics that nobody else will touch with a 10-foot pole. So I think that is where this is the main thing where the program gets its credibility from, and its engagement with its engagement with the listeners of Talk City. I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna let
You
you
seem to
talk.
have gone into the matrix there. I'm not sure if we can hear her on your end, but certainly titillating times, as to be expected. The memorable moment that comes to the fore is that of the taking down of that iconic statue. And of course all the picketing and protests that went along with it. I am certainly very interested to find out with regards to the program. There was a 2 hour format at first, and then it was reduced to the 1 hour. In terms of the process, I heard a little birdie told me that Dr. Fergus and Shabaka used to really engage in some intellectual jousting with regards to Pan African topics. Any of those stand out for you, Sister Vanessa, on tonight?
Yeah. So Vanessa, I think just to clarify, Kwame's asking two interesting questions there. One is how come we went from 1 hours to 2 hours to 1 hour?
It's the one, yeah,
You
two
remember
hours
how
to
we used
one,
to get
yeah.
how we used to get into trouble?
2 hours to one was a big disappointment, and I don't think it was. It seemed to be an arbitrary kind of decision that was made. It wasn't certainly something that was discussed with me. It was just done. It was just a fait accompli. This is it. And I think one of the immediate concerns, the fallback position is in that there's a free program and somebody's coming to pay for an hour, give them the hour because money counts. We will do very interesting things with our 2 hours. I was listening back, like I said, to that a program in 2016, another one in 2019, and there was the program was more musical, and the discussions were longer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the things that we have to recall, and I think I wanna remember this. You were always one who advised us to be cautious. You advised caution in our approach to the some of the topical issues, particularly the local issues that infringed on the politics. And you would warn us that if we push this button, we were likely to lose Indaba. And there were those times that the PNM was in office or the UNC was in office, and we took up those issues that were important to them, that they were in trouble for. And of course, in each time, and you warned us, we were kicked off the air or we were punished by losing an hour. I think it was you would always be the one to say if we touch that particular issue, what was it, section 24, 34, that was
34,
one of those issues that got us kicked off the air. So there have been those times over the years that we have, since we are on a government station, where we address issues that the government does not want civil society to address. They don't want to hear opinions contrary to theirs coming out on their stations, and they punish us. And we've taken those chances over the years and suffered the consequences.
I don't know if I can even endorse that, Shabaka. I can say that there are times when I did pull you back and say, okay, Shabaka, watch what you're doing with this or with that. But I think that in terms of somebody making some concerted effort and saying, okay, we're going to take it off the air. What happened? Remember, we used to come on, we were on we changed days. That was something else that happened. The day changed. There was a time when I think was on a Sunday, not so? Either Sunday or Friday. There was a day change. There was a day change, and then suddenly we were settled into the Wednesday position, and we were very happy there. And I think that it's become a good spot. I think that we did exceedingly well in terms of when COVID approached, when COVID came, and nobody could come to the studio, and I was able to go into my old resources, of packaging the program to ensure that something happened, and the Emancipation Support Committee itself was able to put things up on YouTube with a great collaboration from the different people, especially when there were significant days happening. But What is this? Something is coming up when it shouldn't. I don't want to be. I don't know if I'm not seeing you. I hope you're still seeing me. Yes, you are. Um, but what can I tell you? It's been an amazing ride. I mean, I was able to package programs with the help of the technical department at Talk City, and we just had to keep going. My insistence was we cannot stop, because if you stop during COVID, you'll give them an excuse to take you off the air. I didn't want anybody to have a reason to take this program off the air, because this program is part of my own personal awakening, and it's an awakening I want for everybody. The things
We
we
seem
need
to
to
have a
know.
call. We seem to have a call.
All
Paul.
right, Karen says she has a call.
All right, here we go.
Hello. Hello, good night.
Pleasant good night. Welcome to Indaba.
Good night. This is David Banfield speaking. And just a comment on this program first started on Sundays.
Yes. Sundays, yes.
Sundays. And Vanessa, intellectually speaking, I know people have to move on to different things, but emotionally, I miss your voice. Good night.
All right, David. Thank you. I miss your voice too. Look at that. Caught your voice right away. So Dr. Fergus has been one of the learners in the program too, because Dr. Fergus did not have much experience in radio, and Dr. Fergus went from just reading out things that he wanted to do, and then it was changed from Africa. He would switch from Africa Report to Viewpoint, and now Dr. Fergus sounds like somebody in an international radio station. He starts off his reports with a enduring or attractive statement, and then he goes, and that's what we're talking about tonight on the Africa Report. And then he goes, so I mean, we have all been part of a learning curve. It's really been marvelous, and the learning will continue, I'm sure.
Shabaka, you're muted.
Unmute, Shabaka.
Thank you, Kwame. I was just going to tell Vanessa that I myself would like to thank her on air because, when I came on, early on, she advised me a great deal in terms of how to approach radio shows, how the necessary brevity that we had to have as hosts so that we could get the most out of our guests and so on. And so I do appreciate that, Vanessa. I would like to say that publicly.
Okay.
But Vanessa, you must have had a favorite guest too. You must have had a guest that you thought
I particularly remember our post Indaba sessions in the yard of the station. Those were also very enlightening. We went on for hours, sometimes midnight in the station.
Wow.
Sometimes sometimes each one of us, we would be there in the yard and we made plans there. We trashed out issues, all kinds of issues, brought up new issues and all of that. And that was part of the family team. It was more than a team, it was like an Indaba family actually. So it went way beyond the station as well. I particularly enjoyed those sessions.
Yes, Dr. Fergus, that's great. I do remember those.
Particularly enjoyed those sessions.
challenging you to remember a guest who came into studio that you thought was, a remarkable person. Somebody said, "Oh man, this was a great person. I'm happy I met this person."
Well, the thing about I may not remember all the names. I remember there was a young lady, and it became your turn to advise me, because you told me this is a person who presented as what can I say, a fair skinned person. She was a very fair skinned person, but she still looked African, and she referred to herself as white. And I think we went for a break, and I said, "Shabaka, how could she be white?" And Shabaka told me, however somebody presents themselves and names themselves, they have to hold on, let them hold on to that and don't query it. So I learned a big lesson that night. There was a young lady who was she had come to do some poetry. I think she may have come for the Bocasid Fest. So I remember that one where I got my socks pulled up and I appreciated it. But we have had I can't pull out anybody. I mean, like David Rudder says in dedication, to name a few would make the others look small. Everybody who came on Indaba did so well. People always came prepped. They came prepped. They're going to come and do something great. Even our telephone conversations with representatives in people in Barbados, people in New York. You know what? One of the conversations I remember, the person who was telling us about Malcolm X. And that was a recent program, but we have spoken to him before.
Dr. James Small.
Dr. James Small. Before him, I think we even had Dudley Thompson. Did we have Dudley Thompson on the program as well? I believe so.
Yeah, we had a lot of the great Pan-Africanists of the 20th century.
Yeah. Tony Martin, yes.
Many of them have now passed on. Dudley Thompson, Tony Martin, but we had, Doctor. Many. It's so difficult. We had artists, famous artists, some who have passed on, who came on.
You're in the Matrix, Shabaka, but I think the next segment now, I am seeing the illustrious Karen. Can we switch to that? But before we do, we definitely want to say our again thank yous to this very illustrious broadcaster and presenter that has taught us so very much, and certainly again gone from the program, but certainly not gone from the family. Looking forward to seeing you moving forward.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yours, Karen.
Let me let you close this segment of the program.
Well, let me just say my final word here. I think, Vanessa, your greatest legacy is that you would have taken the program through all the phases up to this point where we are now online and through the various online apps. And that perhaps one of your greatest legacy is not only the continuation of the show, but in your successor, because many programs, radio programs crash after an anchor had been there for a very, very long time. And the fact that you will have handing over to such a capable, also African-centered and African-centric anchor, I think it speaks volumes to you as well. So we welcome Karen home, and we already see her walking in the shoes, so we are glad for that.
Yes, most definitely. She's right. Certainly, she was not. The choice was not mine, but it definitely was the right choice made by the station to have Karen come on.
It means the station knew what you were doing, and they would have tried their best to put somebody in as a perfect successor to you, and that's compliments to you as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, Kwame, you were saying something.
Oh, I was simply going to ask our illustrious presenter, this golden voice, to give us her closing remarks and comments. What do you want to leave in our hearts and minds on tonight?
Keep on loving Africa. That's what I'd say. And let's teach some more people how to love Africa and be African conscious.
Thank you, Vanessa. Lots of love to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, gentlemen. I think I don't want to call it
the end of an era, the beginning of a new one.
Because I'm hoping that Vanessa will join us again in some capacity here on Indaba. So I don't want to say goodbyes and make it a final farewell or anything like that. But certainly, We want to thank Vanessa profusely on our own behalf and on behalf of all those people outside, all those listeners who really enjoyed her voice over the last decade. So lots of love to her, and all the best wishes in whatever she chooses to do going forward. As I said, she may no longer be part of the 91.1 Talk City family, but she's always going to be part of the Indaba family.
Absolutely. To
And now
coming
let's
from the
welcome
ESC.
Khadija.
Oh, absolutely.
Hi, good evening.
Go ahead, Khadija. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so I'll be presenting on the activities of ESCTD for the month of May. Right now, we have actually tomorrow, we are hosting the orientation for the regional spoken word competition, which is the first phase of the national spoken word competition. We have a number of schools, a nice cross section of Trinidad and Tobago schools, primary schools. Um, that session will be hosted by Dara Healy from Educator. Also, we have on May 28th, Eva Africa 2, Sankofa Side, our fashion extravaganza directed by Richard Young. Right now, we have a special going on for Mother's Day. Tickets purchased by the 14th of May. Those tickets will be eligible to win a fantastic handcrafted leather bag. It's really beautiful. Ready will bring up the video after. The venue is Queen's Hall Garden Theatre. I got on May 28th. Tickets are $300 for general seating and $350 for special reserve. Persons can get tickets online via Queen's Hall or at Queen's Hall Box Office located in Penzance or at Emancipation House located at 5 Little Rock Road in Marabal. We have a wonderful lineup of designers, models as well, and persons will be able to get their last minute touches at the Artisan Gallery. And we also have a meet and greet with designers at the end of the show.
I'm not sure if you can take it as
Get your Sankofa style early bird tickets today and become eligible to win an exquisite, bespoke, handcrafted cow leather conversation piece by Keto African Arts, a fashion extravaganza directed by Richard Young and Queen's Hall in 20. It's all part of Iwa Africa Sankofa style. Get your Sankofa style early bird tickets before Mother's Day and be part of the African Beau Monde with an exclusive chance to win a one-of-a-kind original leather masterpiece by Keto African Arts. Let's make style, Sankofa style. Iwa Africa, a production of the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago.
$1 million. First, let's see this evening's multiplier.
Yes, I think Khadijah's gone there. But guys, let me say that Iwa Africa has become one of the major aspects of the emancipation celebration every year. I think that you've had this explosion of African fashion on the continent and neo-African fashion across the diaspora, and the excitement around African fashion has become has grown to such an extent, and we're seeing it reflected in the participation in Iwa Africa. I know right now they will.
Yeah, I have
Yes,
to
go ahead,
concur with
Kwame.
you. Yeah, I was just saying I have to concur with you. Beyond the pride, the ethnic pride, certainly not only the traditional African look, but the neo African imaging, things on sale. It has become really a community. Definitely one of the flagship events of the Pan African Festival. Definitely looking forward to it this year. I don't know how they are able every year to up the ante, but we have some very, very talented people in the community. And certain said definitely looking forward to yet another fantastic extravaganza for this fashion show.
Kwame, brother, Reverend Kwame, I see you wearing your a piece right now, a beautiful piece. Did you get
Oh
that
well,
for the show?
well, you flatter me. I wish I did. Then I could fully represent the fashion show 1,000%. But I'm sure when I go there, on the 28th, that there'll be much more pieces the likes of this for me to choose from, especially insofar as we are live on air now. We have to represent. We have to represent. We have to make it look good. So definitely looking forward to that. Of course, tonight's program is super exciting, and I don't want to take another minute from the feature interview and all that has to happen coming forward. But again, definitely looking forward to this fashion extravaganza. People can get their early bird tickets. Check ESC via Facebook. Our numbers, and in case you forget, Shabaka is going to share before the end of the program, and we're going to have a bumper time.
Indeed. 628. Let me just do that while we wait for Dr. Fergus to
Okay, if you can hear
628
me,
5008.
if you
628
guys can hear me,
5008. Okay, I guess I'm in the show. I'm the only host left in the show. We're looking forward to a very exciting segment now. If you're just joining us, you are on Indaba, the place where knowledge grows, the place to find consensus, the voice of the people, the voice of the Emancipation Support Committee. And of course, we are just about to join Dr. Claudius Fergus, who is the former chair of the Department of History at the University of West Indies. And he's going to be talking to a doctor based here in the Caribbean who is from Egypt about this subject of Cleopatra, which has captured the attention of the world in recent times. The depiction of Cleopatra. Let me just say this while we're waiting. In the past, Egyptian pharaohs, Egyptian rulers have usually been depicted by Hollywood as white. And of course, the only people who have objected to that have been African people, because we know our history. But when that depiction becomes someone of African descent, I found it very interesting that you had this wide cross section of people who objected to that. So you had Greeks, you had Europeans, you had Arabs. You just had this broad cross section of people objecting, people from the Mediterranean objecting to Africans being used to depict a ruler of an African civilization on the continent of Africa. Very remarkable detail there. And of course, we're looking forward to hear what Dr. Fergus has to say. And of course, he'll be joined by a very special guest very shortly. In the meantime, perhaps we can take some telephone calls. 622-4911. That's the number to call. Here's Dr. Fergus.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I had some problem. My camera was frozen, so it actually knocked me out of the show, and I'm back in. So.
All right. I just introduced the program to people. I just pointed out to them
I was hearing you, but apparently I could do nothing else but that.
Okay. Well, now you're
So
in.
this is the Africa
It's all
report.
yours.
Yeah, this is the Africa report. Going to Okay, I seem to be having some problems again there. So after centuries, actually after many millennia of interracial mixing, whether from conquest or peaceful migrations, Kemet or ancient Egypt, as it is better known, has long been a cosmopolitan country. The country that we now call Egypt would have been invaded and governed by many foreigners, foreign to the continent, and those, of course, include the Persians, the Romans, the Arabs, the Greeks, even down to the French. But the country was also invaded and ruled by foreigners from within the continent. Of course, some may not wish to define them as foreign, but they were foreign to the country of Egypt, and these include the Libyans and the Cushites, who are now known as Sudanese. Kemet itself had been an imperial nation from time to time and would have extended its domain way into Palestine, which also allowed for an influx of Middle Eastern peoples into Kemet. And another factor that would have facilitated interracial mixing was the prosperity and grandeur of Kemet, which attracted many peoples, either to escape famine or for intellectual and spiritual objectives. Now, the big question for this evening is, did the film director, whose name is Tina Garavi, overstep the boundaries of historical reality by having Afro-English actress Adela James portray Cleopatra, who was the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty of ancient Egypt? Now, that controversy is still swirling, and before I introduce my guest, I want to play a few snippets of conversation on the subject by three white male panelists on an online radio. Renee, can you run that clip for me, please? Thank you.
Some interesting choices with Cleopatra. She is now played by a black actress, and as you can imagine, the world didn't take it too well, and there's been a lot of backlash to this casting choice because, and it's my understanding that the real life Cleopatra was actually Macedonian Greek, and so she wouldn't be African. She would be more or less white. It should be Mediterranean at the very least.
This is how they reacted to the claim by director Tina Garavi that she long wanted to release Cleopatra's historical image from the stranglehold of Hollywood.
Eventually decided to do is remove one stranglehold and place a completely different stranglehold on her because again, you're not being accurate, and you could make the same argument. Say you wanted to have someone play Genghis Khan, and you chose like a black actor for that instead of an East Asian actor. Well, John Wayne. That's what I was leading into. If you get criticism for it and say, "Well, John Wayne played him back in the 1960s," and it's like, yeah, and everyone recognizes that that was ridiculous as well by today's standards. But that doesn't make what you're doing any better. It's just like you're comparing one bad thing to another.
A director, isn't she like Iranian or something? So she doesn't have any particular stake in it. And then you've got a lot of Egyptian people actually complaining and saying, no, this isn't representative of our culture as well, and you've got it wrong. So you managed to piss off and alienate pretty much everyone in the name of this fantasy that you have.
The irony is it's not just complaints from Egyptian people, it's actual lawsuits as well. There's one here from Egyptian lawyer Mahmoud al-Semari filed a complaint with the nation's public prosecutor to request that Netflix be blocked in Egypt due to the promotion of Afrocentric thinking, including slogans and writings aimed at distorting and erasing the Egyptian identity.
Is the obligation of directors for historical authenticity, while of course dismissing the traditional misrepresentation of many African heroes by the same Hollywood. And the second is the accusation that the director, who is an Iranian, by the way, was promoting Afrocentric fantasy about ancient Egyptian culture. I now want to invite our guests to share some thoughts on the controversy. Dr. Madia Farag Miller is a native Egyptian. She has a first degree in archaeology from the University of Cairo and a master of philosophy from the engineering faculty of the University of the West Indies and Trinidad campus. Later on, she obtained a PhD from the University of Tasmania. Welcome to Indaba, Dr. Miller. So tell us, is Adela James, who is a mixed-race actress, wrongly cast as Queen Cleopatra? Is there something perhaps more at stake, more fundamental than race in this controversy? Just share your views with us, please.
Okay, thanks for inviting me to this show. Dr. Fergus, can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, definitely. Go ahead.
Okay. This ethnicity and who you are, you're black or white, it is something was new to me when I came to Trinidad. I think I make that point clear to you. Yes. I had no idea you have to be saying what is it if you're black or white. That is undocumented here in Trinidad. But going to see now, this is happening in this era of time, in the 21st century, people arguing about an actor which would mix race to be playing the role of Cleopatra is kind of ridiculous sometimes to think about it. What is wrong of being presented mixed race? I am mixed race if with the point of view now, how people think and see how people are. I am Egyptian, but I didn't think of what saying mixed race. I thought I'm Egyptian, that is enough. I don't see the point of making a big issue about who is the actor, because before that, when it's completely white female play the role, nobody make a big scene. And now it's you probably get more permission to more when we do all this argument. When we think about Cleopatra was born in Alexandria, had frown as Greek so with the Egyptians. There's no doubt there is Egyptian. Born in Egypt. Alexandria was city before the Greek. A small city, with a lot of different people from various parts of the Mediterranean, Europe. Yes.
Hello. Dr. Fergus, I just wanted to say I have a call.
Yes.
Let me just bring them in.
Yes.
Caller, could you just lower the volume on your radio and just listen to us on the phone? That way we can bring you up. Hello, you're on live. You're on live.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed the thing with Vanessa. But what I wanted to say was, I was on the program. This is Wayne Parrott from the African History Month Committee, and she treated me well. And her last comments were that love Africa, keep on loving Africa, and that's what I wanted to see. Now, some of the topics, there was a topic that was discussed on Indaba, which pertained to the papal bull, and
I'm sorry about that, but I think that may throw you off a little bit, Dr. Miller. Go ahead with the insights you're giving us. In terms of Cleopatra herself, would you say that there is a problem or there's no problem with Adela James representing her from a historical point of view?
there is no certain definition or to prove what color of her skin. There's a coin. Every coin is not colored. And if it was colored, it will be the metal it used. And the other factor is the statues or the reliefs of Cleopatra on the Temple of Dandra. The Dandra Temple at Edfu, city south of Egypt. She was depicted as Isis and with her son with her as pharaohs, but it was not colored. So where is this issue of skin color came from? I personally don't see. Nobody can give certain city or can give an actual evidence to show us what shade of light, dark, or middle dark, middle tone, and no, there is nothing, no evidence of exactly her skin color. What kind of skin color or what color? It is an issue, and it will remain because her tomb will not. It did not discovered yet, and the information and documentation about the city of Alexandria is located in an area close to the island of Pharaoh that sunk under the sea, 15 meters under the water. And right now there is work going on to extract and look at the information, or perhaps it's to find something to give them more details about who was the Ptolemies who ruled Egypt for almost 300 years, 3 centuries. Other
Okay,
than
let me
that,
ask you a last question there. When the film is due to be released and soon, this month, and there's a call by some Egyptians, I say some deliberately, some Egyptians, because as you know, when we spoke earlier today, we don't know how representative the objectors are of the general Egyptian viewpoint. So, should in your view, should efforts be made to ban the film, or should efforts be made to convince people to let the film show in Egypt and let people form their own opinion?
with with regard of the freedom of making your own opinion about seeing something, from that regard, I would say it should be shown anywhere, everywhere, and let the people judge how much is it true or not true. If the movie convincing people or not convincing, let the people judge that.
Okay, so we have to close the segment at this time. So, Dr. Fad Miller, I want to thank you very much for coming and hope that this is not the last time that we will have you on the program to share your views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fad.
My brother. Shabbat.
All right, all right. I was trying to interrupt you there to say let's keep Dr. Farag Miller to further the conversation, or at least you could stay and we could review one or two issues here. I wanted to ask Dr. Farag Miller about that idea that she raised. The issue.
You can ask her.
Doc, you said that the idea of black and white as a conflict, as two racial groups, was something you were introduced to here in Trinidad. But we see evidence that in Egypt itself, based on the fact that you have Egyptians now suing the company, that there are issues in terms of race in Egypt itself, in terms of color and race. How do you reconcile that?
Okay, if I tell you that my mom had blue eyes, she's recently died, blue eyes and white skin with curly hairs. My dad dark skinned guys, and there was nothing to say who is black and who's white. It's loving parents who said education is the key to success in life, and that is what I know about race. We mix colors in between these two. Mom blue eyes. That's my mother. So if I walk with her, you probably see that I'm not her daughter. So what you're talking about ethnicity and colors and black and white, I This is political. I don't. I didn't get politics is not my field. I looked at even for my surgery. I study the landscape of archaeology of St. Kitts. And St. Kitts is an island. I did that. Then I moved to Tasmania initially, and I focus on artifacts of the 19th century. My interest in art, and I'm an artist myself. I paint, but politics is not my field. They say black and white and issues and age, and will keep away from that because I don't see it that way. And I said I debated. My mom had blue eyes. You're looking at me now. Would you say yes? Her mom had blue eyes.
Yeah, let me ask
Would
you.
you say that?
Just to elaborate a little further on the question. There's
Yes.
an idea in academia that the whole idea of black and white is something that is native to the this hemisphere, and that people who come from the continent of Africa or even from Europe don't come. They become black or white when they come to the Americas, because this is where the idea was invented in a sense, with the arrival of Christopher Columbus. And before that, people in Europe came from many different what we might call nations or tribes or groups or what have you. And the same thing for the continent of Africa. Is this what you're alluding to, perhaps?
That's definitely is true because I only heard about ethnicity here in Trinidad, and I came in the 80s, and I was shocked, and I wanted to refuse it. But this saying this is what you have to do, as you either came and from India or Africa, and I said this is nonsense.
One of our listeners wants to know if you ever experienced or saw racism in Egypt.
No, never, never. I never had that experience. No.
All right,
I
Dr. Miller, thank you very much. I don't know
thank
if Dr.
you.
Fergus has another question.
No. I will close there because I know
Okay,
you
well,
need extra time to address your own issue.
okay. So in the short time that we have left,
Yeah.
I know what I was asked to do tonight was to prepare a quick list of some of the major issues affecting the diaspora at this particular point in time. And there's so many interesting things happening. But today I was invited to a radio show on crime from 4 to 7 p.m. on Power 102. And I felt it imperative for me to take the last few minutes here tonight to just share some of the things that came out of that program, since they're so important to the dialogue that's happening right now. Well, first of all, let me say that the program was quite interesting. Perhaps the only person on the program that we had to condemn, and it started with Dr. David Mohammed. Then there was an Indian doctor. His name I'm not seeing here on my list. He's an expert on crime. I'll find it in a minute. And then we had the Pundit Maharaj, who made the offensive statements last week, and then myself, and after that, Brother Oswald Warwick from the trade union movement. The pundit, to my surprise and shock, perhaps my horror today, could not find it in himself to admit that there was anything wrong with his utterances. In fact, for the utterance that Indians were being attacked by Africans, he actually said that it was the other pundit who made the offensive statement. That is Pundit Rambachan. And but he was not willing to critique that statement. In fact, he went so far as to argue that places like St. Anne's and West Moorings, he doesn't hear about crime from those places. There's no crime there. The crime is in Indian neighborhoods, and it is the miscreants of the urban miscreants who are the guilty party. So he doubled down on his position, and when he was asked about the fact that across the board, including within his very community of Indian pundits, he was condemned, he blamed everybody else and considered himself to be innocent of any crime. So a very, very sad and disappointing state of affairs. Some of the substance that came out of the conversation, a lot of it came from Dr. David Mohammed, who spoke about scapegoating, focusing on a group that is already the victim of scorn. He felt that that was an easy way out, for those who wanted to, who had their agendas. And of course, he pointed out that none of the drug lords in this country, none at the top level, according to Dr. Darius Figueroa's research, are Africans. Then he went on to point out that none of the 10 greatest criminals in Trinidadian history have been African. Another important factor. But yet, the majority of the population in the jails were of African descent. And of course, so those are very, very interesting information that he brought to the fore. The second gentleman, as again I say, I have to apologize for not being able to find his name here among my notes. But he was very good as well. He spoke about the deprivation as a major factor in who commits certain kinds of crimes. And of course, he was talking about the disadvantage and unequal access that people from the so-called hotspots in Trinidad have to the opportunities available in this country. And so I thought that was an important contribution. One of the things that I did not get to address myself, which came from the host, was the idea that single mothers or single mother families are the problem. I think we have to be clear that single mothers are part of a symptom of a deeper problem rather than the problem itself. And that's where I came into the program to point out that what we're really dealing with here are some structural inequalities that we've inherited from the colonial period. And I pointed out that Trinidad is not alone in these structural inequalities, that in fact 8 out of the top 20 most homicidal countries in the world are English-speaking Caribbean countries. And it is the fact that we have not acknowledged or addressed that colonial legacy was our biggest problem. So those were some of the issues that we raised, and of course I pointed to some specifics, in particular the education system, and I asked people, would any of us and of course I believe that the working class, C.L.R. James famously said that one of the problems with the working class in the Caribbean is that there's a group of them that see themselves as so-called middle class and separate from the rest of the working class. I identify as a member of the working class, and I identify with everybody from that class, no matter how high or low they are. But those of us who have a certain amount of privilege in the working class, how many of us would send our children to the schools that we are quite comfortable seeing the most marginalized members of our community having to send their children to? And of course, the answer is none of us would be comfortable to send our children to those schools, but we feel comfortable living in a society where the people who most need that education are forced to go to those kinds of institutions. I didn't even get around to talk about the fact that when you move from primary to secondary school, you have affirmative action to the elites. All the best secondary schools in the country have 20% of their positions reserved for for the those in charge of the schools to choose who comes in those positions. And when you look and you disaggregate the data of who has benefited from those 20% positions, you see that Africans are the least. So you're talking about a community now. When we talk about the most marginalized members of the working class, who have experienced what I would call accumulated disadvantage. And these are the kinds of issues I think we have to address if we're going to deal with crime. It doesn't matter. Well, when I say deal with crime again, let me be clear. A specific types of crime, because according to Dr. Salandi, who was on our program a couple of weeks ago, Westmorelands and Valsane, and it might be a controversial statement, but you have to think about it. Westmorelands and Valsane might be equally hotspots, crime hotspots, as Mova and Laventille. And the argument he makes is that the entire society, and Dr. I think we're going to close off on 91.1. So let me invite those listeners who are listening to us on radio to tune in to the overtime of this program. It's 15 minutes on the Emancipation Sport Committee's Facebook page or on YouTube page. So please continue with us. And for those of you who have to go, I want to wish you a good night. Thanks for joining us here on Indaba. And good night to you, Karen.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yes, brothers. So I think the point I'm making here now is that according to Dr. Richard Drayton, Professor Richard Drayton, the relationship that we have with our society historically, or the relationship that power has had with our society historically, is an exploitative one. This is a zone of exploitation rather than a zone of settlement. So people historically came here to rape and plunder and loot as much as they could and then return to somewhere else. And that traditional relationship with our space has not changed. And it goes across the board in the society. So you see it in the way that elites relate to the state, the way they treat with the state and the country. That patriotism, that love for the country might actually be more entrenched in the masses than it is at the higher levels of the society. And so across the board, people are involved in different degrees of looting and criminal activity. You know, so when a politician rents a building for years that they do not use, right, for millions of dollars from a party financier, a friend, or somebody who's in the party, in government office, that is a crime that we all pay for. That money that we just lost or was placed in the pocket of one individual could have been used to affect positively those very communities from which so much of the petty violent crime is emerging from today. And so we're all responsible for the criminal activity in our society. That's the point I wanted to make. I'm going to bring in Ambassador Reverend Kwame Kamau and Dr. Claudius Fergus on the subject now. We have another 10 minutes in the program.
I'll certainly take the first stab at it, so to speak. It's a very controversial topic, but one that has to be broached sensitively. When I recollect in Trinidad and Tobago in the 70s and in the 80s, a certain kind of exodus, a certain type of outward migration to Canada by our amazing and beautiful East Indian brothers and sisters. When they were questioned and queried in terms of why they were leaving Trinidad and Tobago based on applications of refugee status within the host nation of Canada, the offering that was given at the time was that we are fleeing, of course, racial prejudice, and it was certainly an attack on our people that is causing us to engage in this outward migration. That's what they told the Canadian authorities. It is on the record with regards to same. Not all of them, of course, but a good number. And so it's very easy always when you find yourself in a cosmopolitan nation that includes African people in the numbers that we are in Trinidad and Tobago. And those African people happen to be, of course, because of what we would refer to as the residues and the residual effect of chattel slavery and colonization at the bottom of the economic, political, and social strata. It's very, very easy to scapegoat. I think about in my mind, there is an East Indian sister whose name doesn't come to mind, who was responsible for the incarceration of thousands of African Americans as a result of the falsifying of the DNA tests and records. Thousands of lives lost in the system as a result of a purposeful attack. Now, that's one individual. Are we to say that that is the case and that's the position of all East Indian women in Trinidad and Tobago? Absolutely not. No one will make that statement, certainly not from any sensible mind. Again, we find now the pundit making the statement, and usually it is a type of tribal based call. It's like the dog whistle that the Republican Party makes and sometimes the Democrat Party makes in relation to trying to rally the base for political, social, economic reasons. But it's very distasteful, because what you would find happening is that it creates now an opportunity for persons to ingest that, to imbibe that, to take that seriously and literally, and cause real harm, of course, to individuals who would be very, very innocent parties with regards to same. So I say shame on anyone who would want to hold on to the position that there is a targeting. Crime is a problem in Trinidad and Tobago as I land my plane, but it is not targeted at any specific ethnic group. It is across the board, and is as a result of, one, the moral and spiritual decay, two, the socio-economic reality. We know that there is very, very clear data and evidence to show that poverty and crime are inextricably linked in terms of the lower levels of crime. Dr. Salandi was talking about in terms of the Valsain Westmoreland's quote. Perhaps the white-collar crime, perhaps the crime that people don't see, that doesn't make the headline, doesn't make the news, but it happens nonetheless. So we need to come together and address the real causal reasons for crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. And I would say shame on any cleric.
Let's use our time. The last couple minutes here. One of the most dangerous proposals, in my opinion, and I want to hear you gentlemen, I'll start with Dr. Fergus, has come from the opposition leader, Kamla Prasad Bisesa. The idea that it is time for us to implement stand your ground laws. Dr. Fergus, you take first stab at this one. In my opinion, it's one of the most dangerous things.
I know time is short and Renee has to go. But I just want to say I listened the closing segments of the radio discussion this evening. You had sent me that invitation. I did tune in, and I thought you made an excellent presentation and a rebuttal to the pundit. You were right on point with all of the issues that you raised. right? I have also said, and perhaps you have heard me before, I think up to the last Indaba meeting that we had, that one of the issues that we miss is that we tend to treat crime only as violent crime, crime against a person, violent crime. And we do not do like Jamaica, that deliberately classify crime to two categories, right? So you have what we call white collar crime here, and there are statistics on that. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have no statistics whatsoever on white collar crime. We cannot say categorically that there were so many instances of white collar crime or apprehensions for white collar crime, perhaps because there's none. But we cannot say categorically. In other words, we truly dismiss that category of crime in a real sense. And yet there are interconnections between the two classes, which we all recognize. In fact, I may dare say, of course, it could be contentious, that they are symbiotic, but definitely not in terms of the punishment and not in terms of the profits that accrue from them. But there is a symbiotic relationship, right? One depends on the other, supports the other, but not in terms of how the state responds to them, right? So, in that respect, I think the discussion is worthy. But you see, for me, I always am wary about talk that doesn't lead to solutions. And I think we need to really be looking to see how the situation can be resolved, because it's not a Trinidad problem. And Shabaka, you pointed that out. Across the Caribbean, you have this problem. I think you mentioned 8 top crime spots in the world are in the Caribbean, in the Anglophone Caribbean. So there must be some commonalities. The education system is at the core of the whole thing. Until we deal with those issues, we're not really going to talk about addressing the issue of crime at all, right? And we can look to see when crime escalated, right? I don't want to blame any particular individual. You mentioned Kamala and her position on with respect to this new gun law that she wants to put in, particularly in the hands of the police. But she was the one, I'm not saying she's the one to blame, but she was the Minister of Education at the time when they expanded the school system across the board, right? Education for all they were talking about. So that people were not even competent at the primary level were being pushed into the secondary school and being graduated knowing nothing. So every year you were churning out thousands of children, teenagers, who had virtually no education. We can't even say miseducation, who were not educated at all. You see? And I remember saying, at that time, I think it was about 2000, if you think the crime situation is bad now, watch 5 years down the road when these people start graduating and you would see what happened. I would lie there.
Inequity in access to the opportunities in the country is a factor. But let me just say categorically that stand your ground. What is so appalling about the use of the phrase as some kind of solution to our problem is that right now, as we speak, not just African Americans, but even white, so-called white Americans, European Americans, are being gunned down in all kinds of odd manners because of stand your ground laws. Right now, there's a huge backlash across the United States about the results of stand your ground laws. There's so much research that exists that shows that stand your ground laws increase homicides. There's research that shows in the very year after stand your ground laws were introduced, homicides increased, and there are further studies that show how racial disparities play out in terms of these stand your ground laws. In particular, when you compare what happens if the if the person who does the shooting is white and the person is black, if the person who does the shooting is white and the victim is black, or sorry, is white, or if the person who does the shooting is black and the victim is black or the victim is white. They're different results in terms of what is defined as a justifiable homicide in each case across the world. And of course, the same stereotyping that applies in the United States of America to African people applies here in the Caribbean. So I can't see it having a different result in here in the Caribbean. There's no evidence to suggest that it wouldn't have a similar result. So it's very disturbing to me that one of our leading politicians would introduce that discourse into Trinidad when we know that as it stands right now, if a person enters your home, we don't need any laws. Nobody's going to put you behind bars for defending yourself. So that's not the problem. This is something that goes beyond that, and it goes into a very, very dangerous place. So I think that's all the time we have for Indaba tonight. But this is a conversation that's ongoing, and this is a conversation we're going to have to revisit over the next couple weeks. Thank you, Reverend Kamal. Thank you, Dr. Claudius Fergus. Thanks to our special guest, Dr. Faray Miller.
Yeah, my dear Farad Miller.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to her, and of course to all our listeners. And thanks to Vanessa for joining us again tonight on Indaba, the place where knowledge grows. Peace and good night.